I have multiples here. Good evening. This is the regular meeting of the Housing and Redevelopment Authority for the City of Richfield, and I would like to call the meeting to order. And first item is roll call.
Commissioner Rubenstein?
Present.
Commissioner Goettel?
Here.
Commissioner Gepner?
Here.
Commissioner Quam?
Here.
And Chair Sandahl.
Here. First item after that is approval of the minutes of the regular HRA meeting, which was held September 15th, 2012. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion made.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or corrections?
Was there a different date on this? It's
Oh,
the
I misspoke.
17th.
Okay.
Yes.
This is the one where we had
Yep.
the correction. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Thank you. So actually, it is the meeting of September 17th, not the 15th. And I assume the makers of the motion are willing to accept that?
Accept.
Okay. Then I'll call the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the approval of the agenda. I will move that. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or corrections? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then now we have the consent calendar, and I'll have Mr. Stark tell us about that.
Yes, thank you, Chair Sandahl and Commissioners. The consent calendar tonight contains 2 items which are acted upon by the HRA in one motion. Once the consent calendar has been approved, the individual items and recommended actions have also been approved. No further HRA action on these items would be necessary. However, any HRA Commissioner may request that an item be removed from the consent calendar and placed on the regular agenda for HRA consideration. The items, both of which are recommended for approval, are A, consideration of approval of a contract with Short Elliott Hendrickson, or SEH, for development of urban design plan to link amenities within the Lakes at Lindale area in an amount not to exceed $23,000. And B, consideration of approval of a resolution authorizing purchase of real property at 7225 First Avenue through the Richfield Rediscovered and New Home programs, and this would be contingent upon approval of a subdivision waiver by the City Council. And that concludes the consent calendar.
I'll move the consent calendar.
May I second, and then may I ask for discussion just for a moment? This is very intriguing about linking the amenities at the Lakes and Lindale area. And I was just wondering exactly, and for the public, what the process is and how we will be allowed to interact or review or this as we move through that process. Because it sounds like it's something very worthwhile.
Yeah, I'll start it off, but Assistant Director Barton has most of the detail on that. I would just say that this is something that the City Council discussed at their goal setting last January, that we have had a lot of development there in recent years. We also have a lot of public amenities there. And the concern was that all of these individual developments, individual improvements, work together, work in concert with each other. And that's why we've pursued this.
Thank you. And I'll just add that we anticipate the process taking approximately 4 months. And during that time, there will be public meetings. There will be 1 or 2 public open houses. There will also be an invitation to stakeholders in the area to participate as well.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Mr.
One thing I notice is that an awful lot of the plan happens before any of the policymakers have much input. Sometimes it's helpful if we can come along, for example, on the walking tour or something like that, and just to know when the process is happening in case we would like to have some input.
Absolutely. We'll make sure to send invitations and keep you aware of activities as they proceed.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think it'd be for the HRA, the council, and the planning commission, but maybe even community services, because they have a lot to do with parks and such.
Mm-hmm. And I guess I would add the planning commission at their bike ride focused on that whole element of connecting all of the amenities that are going on down there. So, so they certainly are aware of it. So, Okay, with that, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Chair Sandahl, may I make a statement here?
On a particular topic, or?
No, I'd like to apologize for my absence of the past 3 meetings. They were for personal reasons that I could not avoid, that I was unable to be in attendance at the meetings. I have viewed the meetings on television. I've read through our packages, and indeed I've been in touch with John Stark about some issues, and so I have not been neglecting my duties. I'm just sorry that I've not been able to make it to the last 3 meetings, and I am here and will be at future meetings.
Okay, thank you. And actually, I think in the future, we can bring that up under HRA discussion items.
Okay.
Okay. Next item is a public hearing. Mr. Stark?
Thank you, Chair Sandahl. I'm going to ask Assistant Director Barton to present the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. The next item is to conduct and close a public hearing for consideration of a resolution authorizing the sale of 7544 2nd Avenue to Johnson-Reiland Builders and Remodelers in consideration of contract for private development with Johnson-Reiland Builders and Remodelers for the construction of a single-family home under the Richfield Rediscovered program. The Housing and Redevelopment Authority purchased 7544 2nd Avenue and demolished a house back in 2011. Johnson-Reiland Builders and Remodelers has submitted an application to purchase the lot and construct a new home under the Richfield Rediscovered program. The builder has a purchase agreement with a buyer to purchase the home upon completion. The new 1.5-story home will have 1,769 finished square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and a detached 2-stall garage. The home will have an estimated end value of $260,000. Construction on the new home is expected to begin in December and will be completed in the spring of 2013. The property was purchased in 2011 for $57,000. The current appraised value of the lot is $56,500. Under the terms of the contract for purchase, the price of the lot is $56,500 and will be due at closing. And both the builder and the end buyers are here this evening if you have questions of either of them. I'm happy to take any questions as well.
Okay. So this is a public hearing. Does anyone wish to address the HRA?
Madam, I would move to close the public hearing.
Would you like to speak?
Would you, do you want to come
Up
up?
to you.
Come on up.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Please state your name.
And if you would state your name and address, and then I think we have a place over here
Sign
to
in.
sign in after you're done.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Matt Ryland with Johnson-Reiland Builders, and my address is 11300 Canby Avenue in Faribault, Minnesota. So basically, we're just hoping that we can we're really looking forward to doing this project in Richfield, and the sooner we can get started on it, the better it would be for our family that we're trying to get in there.
Okay,
Thanks.
all right. Does anybody? Okay, thank you.
Does anyone have any questions or? Okay.
I guess I did have one question in looking at the materials. The basement has a roughed-in bathroom. What's the timeline on that? And is the rest of the basement going to be finished, everything but the bathroom? Or
We're finishing the 2 bedrooms down there to
Okay.
get 2 more living spaces, but the main level has a bathroom, and then there's a master bathroom in the half story above everything.
Okay,
So there's potential for a 3rd bath, yes.
okay,
But this time we're just going to roughen the pipes underneath the concrete.
okay. Any other questions up here from the?
That's
Looks like
exactly
a really
what I
nice
was going to
home.
ask.
Yeah, okay.
Very nice home.
All right, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And we have a motion to close debate. Is there, or discussion? Is there, close the public hearing, excuse me. And anyone else who wishes to speak? If not, then we'll call the question. All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, so we have before us a motion, which I will move, that we approve with a resolution authorizing the sale of 7544 2nd Avenue to Johnson-Reiland Builders and Remodelers and to authorize execution of a contract for private development with Johnson-Reiland Builders and Remodelers for the development of a single-family home under the Richfield Rediscovered program. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, further discussion up here?
I have a question of staff. When we had a sale of this type last month, there was a neighbor who came and asked why there was a need for a public hearing, and it was pointed out that when the HRA sells something, you have to have a public hearing. But do the neighbors within the 350 feet get notified? Is that how that neighbor happened to come?
Yes. We sent out a postcard, and it's also noted in the newspaper that there's a public hearing.
Well, we've had so much wonderful activity just recently, too, with these homes. This is just great. It's very exciting for us, too, to see these beautiful new homes. And you know what I really enjoyed, too, is looking at some of the homes and the way that they've been, just the architecture. They fit into the neighborhoods. So they're not McMansion. And I'm very pleased to see that the folks that are building these homes are trying to make them fit into the neighborhoods, too. Thank you for that. We appreciate that.
Anyone else have any comments?
I just have a question. This is 5 or 6, is that right, this year of Richfield Rediscovered?
This is actually number 8.
8.
And then we have
I'm glad I asked.
we have 2 more that should be closing by the end of the year.
And how many more lots do we have? Can you recall?
We have 10 Richfield Rediscovered lots remaining and 6 new home lots remaining.
And so
Thank you.
people watching at home should check our website. We have those addresses listed if they're interested in a site that we have, in a lot that we have. And if they happen across a small house that is perhaps dilapidated or somehow not up to market standards, that they think, well, gosh, a new house would look absolutely great on this instead of this house, they can call us with that too. There's a program by which we could help them develop a lot with a house on it already.
And that's a $50,000 grant, is that correct?
Correct.
Yes. I just want to note that this has been a super year for getting Richfield Rediscovered started again. I think that's a good sign for our real estate market in Richfield. And any of the developers that are keeping track of what's going on, or builders who want to bring someone here, the lots are going fast.
I did want to note that I walked by one of them today and the sign is down on our lot. So if somebody, I don't know if somebody drives those or something, it's north of 70th between Nicollet and Lindale.
We'll take care of that. Thank you.
Thanks.
John and Karen, how do most people approach you on this? Is it a real estate person? Is it a home buyer? Is it a contractor?
Generally, it is a home buyer. Sometimes it's a builder who will come forward first. We typically don't have realtors approaching us on these, but it's usually people who are interested in Richfield and who have been looking around for a house for sale and come across a vacant lot and say, oh, I'd love to build a new house here.
Okay. My one comment is that the lot is a nice one. You are essentially right next to the bike and hike trail. That'll be very nice when once your house is built, and you can have easy access. You can get all the way downtown, I think, and also to Hopkins, I swear, by the time you're done, and eventually across the river to Egan once the Bloomington gets their bridge done, or into the Minneapolis Grand Rounds. So, okay, let us call the question. If there's no further discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Well, congratulations, and we look forward to having you in Richfield.
Welcome.
Item number 5. Mr. Stark.
Yes, and I'm again going to ask Assistant Director Barton to present that staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. The next item is consideration of a request for a subordination of a Housing and Redevelopment Authority transformation loan at 7033 Penn Avenue. Michael and Heidi Johnson, the homeowners at 7033 Penn Avenue, have requested a subordination of a $15,000 transformation home loan that they received from the HRA on August 30th, 2007. At 86%, the combined loan-to-value ratio exceeds the HRA subordination and satisfaction policy limit of 80% and staff level appeal limit of 85%. In addition, the debt superior to the HRA would increase by 63%, which exceeds the policy limit of 50%. As a result, the request was denied by staff, and the homeowners have asked to appeal the denial and are bringing it before the HRA for consideration this evening. The homeowners began their remodeling project back in 2008 using a home equity line of credit and the transformation loan to finance the project. Costs on the remodel exceeded these resources, and the homeowners were unable to obtain a construction loan to complete the project. So they turned to credit cards and a loan from their 401k to complete the $222,000 project. Now that the project has been completed, the home's value has increased, and the homeowners are seeking to refinance their existing first mortgage, pay off their line of credit, the 401k loan, and credit card debt incurred to remodel the house. The homeowners have receipts verifying the loans were all used to complete the remodeling project and have submitted these receipts to the HRA staff. The HRA is currently in third position behind a primary mortgage with a balance of $153,147 and a home equity line of credit of $32,600. Both superior mortgages would be paid off through the refinance, and the HRA's lien would be in second position behind the new primary mortgage. The HRA lien would no longer be behind a line of credit. And additionally, by refinancing their mortgages and paying off their additional debt, the homeowners would see a savings of approximately $2,000 per month. The proposed first mortgage that would be in front of the HRA in the event of the refinance would be $303,000. Again, that the HRA's lien would move into second position and would not be behind a line of credit at that point. Both Heidi and Michael Johnson are here this evening if you have questions of them, and they have prepared a folder of information that was placed at your seats this evening. That should be in front of you, a blue folder. And if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them at this time.
Thank you. Thank you for all that added information. It really gives you an idea of how much work you put into your house. It's wonderful. And I did stop by this morning because I thought I knew which house it was, but I wanted to make sure because we didn't have a picture in our packet. And I got to meet with Michael, and he gave me the nickel tour of the $100 tour of the house. It's a wonderful tour. And I did take a couple snapshots, which maybe you can share on the overhead so people at home could see them. If the house isn't at 80%, it soon will be with the change in the market as things get appreciated.
Well, it was a very apparent from reading how much equity they had gained just by doing the remodels. And this is not that far from my neighborhood, so I've seen this as it was.
Maybe the first shot you could show is the one showing the before and after. That's
that's so
pretty
striking.
Dramatic, yeah.
That's so striking.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh, yes.
So people at home can see the house that we see in the lower left-hand picture is the same house that's half of the house that's sitting there to the right. And then the addition is a major addition. It's on Penn Avenue, so it's pretty obvious when you drive by that they added a huge expansion. And then I do want you to share your kitchen. I fell in love with your kitchen.
Thank you.
So how long did it take to get these renovations together? I know this was a bit of a time.
It was. We initially started in 2007 when we pulled the permit. And to start, we applied for the transformation loan and received the funds for that. We had some savings that we had put aside, and then we had a small home equity line of credit to start. And we started prior to any of the housing debacle and economic downturn that happened. So about at the time that we ran out of money and we were ready to apply for a construction loan to finish the project, everything was just pretty much on standstill. We could have received a couple of different financial options, but they just put us in a situation that we didn't agree to. So what we basically did is we've funded the project ourselves. That's why it took us so long to finish. We kind of paid as we went, and we do have credit card loans out, and the majority of them are on 0% currently and are coming due, and that's why we're in a position right now where we're just about finished. We need to insulate the garage and sheetrock that, and then we'll pretty much be done. So we're in a position right now to apply for and refinance.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. No, and it looks very nice. I've been by it as well.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank
I have
you.
a curiosity question. Their two homes to the north had undergone similar remodeling. Any connection between those houses and you, or you would?
Actually, the two houses to the north are new houses, and they were built about 10 to 15 years ago, maybe 10 to 15. And that actually is part of the reason why we decided to do the remodel. We had major water issues. When those houses were built, the elevation compared to where we sit is so much higher that when it would rain, we would have major issues with water in our basement. So we added the garage and built up around the back side of the house. And I mean, it's prevented any water from coming in to the basement. But great neighbors, and they're beautiful houses as well.
Okay, any more questions or comments?
This is wonderful.
All right, I'm going to move on this one, that we approve the request for subordination of the Housing and Redevelopment Authority Transformation Loan at 7033 Penn Avenue.
Second. I just want to say, I just think this is a great use of these dollars, and looking at the equity that they put in a home and looking what that looks like down the street on Penn Avenue is an asset to the community.
I'd like to comment on something that Commissioner Goettel said a few minutes ago in terms of the rising property values in Richfield and how that's going to, in a short order, make this, within our guidelines. Looking at the paper on Sundays, as I always do, to see what the closing costs are on houses that have recently sold, virtually nothing is below $150,000 now, whereas even 6 months ago you could find houses that were selling in Richfield $70,000, $80,000 and even less. So our property values are rising really rather precipitously, which is great.
It's good news.
Any other comments or questions?
I would like to say that while this is an exception to our guidelines, I would support this on two bases. One is pain and suffering, and the other one is guts. I mean, I think what you guys have done really isn't something everyone would take on, and anyone else who comes before us with the same kind of story, I would support them too.
Well, and especially in an economic downturn that you did this. I remember seeing the rocks go in the back. I saw that.
The boulder wall, yes.
Yes, that's really cool.
Thank you so much for your consideration. We really appreciate it.
Oh, and just a question, in the event that we ever do our Richfield Home and Garden Tour, would you consider showing off your showplace?
Absolutely. We would love
Okay.
to.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Definitely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so we have the motion before us, and it's been seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, any HRA discussion items? Go ahead.
In light of the comment about all the Richfield rediscovered houses that are coming up, when I was previously on the Planning Commission, we had the ability, and we had a bus, where we took a tour and saw some of the changes in certain areas of Richfield, and the staff pointed out that this was before and this is after, and as it was pointed out by some of my fellow commissioners, they kind of blend in, and you really don't know which are which. until you take a tour like that. But I found that worthwhile and would ask that that might be a consideration for the future for this group. And we did it as a planning commission then, and maybe even some of the council persons would have an interest in something like that. And we don't have the bus anymore, so it'll have to be a bike tour. And it's getting cold, but I'm sure we can work around all that.
I'm sure we can find some way to make it happen somewhere in the future.
Okay. I had one item it occurred to me as I was driving over here and noticing all of the vote yes for the Richfield schools signs.
Yes.
And I guess this is a personal thing on my part, but certainly the HRA knows the connection between education and quality schools and the housing and the value of housing in Richfield. And I don't know if the group is supportive, but I certainly would like to move that we go on record supporting the two proposed levies for the Richfield School
I'll
District.
second that.
I would also move that we support it.
Any discussion?
Seems to me that as a body that's trying to promote the quality and value of our housing and our development in the community, we are so tied to the quality and value of the schools that we have that it would be a very responsible thing for us to do to support a resolution like that.
Okay. And then the other piece of that is that Dr. Soderbach, the superintendent, did come and speak at the recent chamber meeting talking about the referendum and what the school district is currently doing and how that would help. And one of the comments he made is, people look at comparisons between different school districts. And his comment was that you really need to look very carefully at those numbers and what are they reflecting. He was explaining that that the graduation rate for Richfield, from the Richfield High School, for students who are in the school for the last 4 years of high school, from 9th grade through 12th grade, is about 95%. So if we get you and we keep you, you'll do well and you'll graduate.
Yes.
But the problem is that when they come up with some of those statistics, if you spend 2 months in 9th grade in Richfield and then you transfer out somewhere else and transfer again, Richfield gets the credit for you not graduating because you were a freshman in Richfield for the first couple of months. So it's important to not necessarily believe all of the statistics that you see and to look behind them to see what's really accurate. Because if you go through the Richfield school districts, you will do well. I think all of our kids here did. And I certainly would commend it. And what the first referendum levy does is it just simply replaces an existing levy, doesn't raise taxes at all. And the second one is a very modest increase, which will help keep us current with some of the things that need to happen in the school district.
Yeah, just rising costs from inflation mostly.
Madam
So,
Chair,
yes.
I don't recall the exact statistics, but Dr. Slatterbach made a presentation at the League of Women Voters Forum for candidates and showed a chart of communities around us and Minneapolis. And except for Minneapolis, we have the lowest per pupil funding of any of those communities. So we would significantly be impairing our education opportunities if we cut that out. And there are some that are nearly double what we have per student.
So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion to support the school levy referendum, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is unanimous. Thank you. Executive Director report.
Madam Chair,
Oh, go ahead.
could I ask a couple other questions before we move to that?
Certainly.
We have a memorandum about the housing study, and I just have a couple comments. One is the proposed group that we have here does have a youthful renter, a youthful homeowner, but that's a very small percentage actually of, as far as younger families are concerned, of the total group of the task force. And I just wanted to observe that seems a little inconsistent with what you said, John, when you first talked to us in a study session. And I'm wondering if there's a way to beef that up a bit. I know some of the maybe other people on this group could also represent young families, but you talked about our wanting to be preparing for the future. And when I review this list, it doesn't seem to me to represent younger families nearly at a proportion that you seem to talk about when we were hearing the plans.
Sure. And I just want to talk about the memorandum a little bit in case anybody watching TV is interested. This is we're discussing the housing visioning process that was first brought up this summer in July and August. We've spent some time on the front end trying to identify a facilitator to make sure that the process can move forward well, and identifying some experts that once we get underway will be able to help come inform the discussion, provide some background information. The facilitator that we're recommending using, his name is John Shardlow. We anticipate bringing a contract to you next month for you to consider with Mr. Shardlow. We ran just a day or two late of getting it on this agenda, but that's fine because the thinking is that this would be a 4-month process. And what we didn't want to do was start the process now and have it be interrupted for 4 or 6 weeks by the holiday season and then start up cold again. So the thinking is this process would start in January. It would be led by a task force of anywhere between 12 and 20 people. We've listed out some kind of types of people that we'd like to see in the task force. You'd mentioned a couple. Some others would include like a real estate agent or a Richfield teacher, those kinds of things. What we're looking for is suggestions from the policymakers, from you as an HRA. I've already heard from one commissioner. I've heard from a planning commissioner, and I'd like to hear from city council for some names. And we say in the memo that hopefully many of the task force members would fit more than one of the criteria. Our hope is to have this be as youthful of a group as possible for the reasons you discussed. This is really looking at what housing in Richfield might look like in 30 years. So we'd like to engage the kinds of people that would still be living here in 30 years. So while only a few of them have the word youthful attached to them, the hope is that all of them, we would be able to find younger demographics, or as many of them as possible. And so to anybody out in the audience, if you're interested in helping shape the future of housing in Richfield, and this is something you can dedicate a little time to, we will be starting this up in January. You can contact city staff. It is our hope to have childcare available so that young families would be able to attend.
Okay.
May I make a couple more comments?
Go ahead.
One other thing that I would suggest is that we have access to either architecture or construction expertise with the task force, either on it or for it, because I've heard it suggested that we solve our one-bedroom apartment surplus by reconstructing existing buildings to accommodate 2 and 3 bedroom units. And I've actually worked on a project like that for Roseville when I was in an earlier life, and we brought architects in and found that it's virtually impossible in some cases to do that from a feasibility of a cost standpoint. So rather than having policy ideas come forward from a group like this that might turn out to be unfeasible, I would recommend that we have some expertise that can actually look at the feasibility of some of those ideas before they come to full fruition.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
Thank you. Okay.
I had one thing too. I know that we had talked at the council meeting about trying to get a futurist in to come and talk about how do people see things for the future. So if we're trying to plan for the future, how do they look at the future, and can we start off with thinking about that? So I actually do have a contact that is supposed to be calling me, and he is a futurist in the Twin Cities areas who does specialize in housing, who could probably be a speaker at one of our events, maybe the beginning rather than the end, just so that we set the framework of thinking out here where things are going to go.
Yeah.
So. So I
Yep.
just want to know, I have been working on that.
Well, and just a note, regardless of whether it's attached to this process or anything else, Commissioner Rubenstein has brought at least one, maybe more than one professional to staff's attention, and that we were able to sit down and talk with some issues over. Commissioner Quam has done that as well. So if at any time you run into somebody out there that you think could help inform staff or inform the community, we would absolutely love to sit down with anybody that you could line up for us.
Good, thank you. Anyone else on our HRA?
I have one,
Discussion?
but you have more as well. As long as we're talking about green sheets. John, we got one that referred to the fact that the HRA might be in a position where they want to remove some of their structures. And is that something that's imminent, so that it should be a topic of discussion, so that we kind of know the pros and cons before it becomes imminent?
Yeah, the structures that Commissioner Gepner is talking about are the city garage buildings, the old city garage buildings, and the old Gleason's mortuary. The hope was that the memo kind of laid out the pros and cons, but that, if that's something that people had interest in or concerns about, that this would be a great venue for discussing that. If we don't discuss it tonight, if you're not ready, if you want to go back and look at the memo, the buildings won't be torn down before the next HRA meeting, so there's still time. Mm-hmm. Really what it comes down to is a couple of things. One is there's a safety concern. We have found people, homeless people residing in the buildings. We're concerned that somebody's going to get hurt. We're concerned that maybe kids are going to play in the buildings, hang out in the buildings, that they might get hurt. And in talking with developers, they tell us every city's got old properties with buildings sitting on it, and one way maybe for us to differentiate our properties in terms of marketing them is to have them more ready to go. The biggest downside is that it could affect whether or not these properties would qualify for a redevelopment TIF district. That would be a concern if we were going to do some kind of commercial development on the sites. On the other hand, most of the TIF that a developer asks for is to clear the site and get a green, clear site. Well, in this case, if the buildings were down, a lot of the environmental would have been taken care of. That need wouldn't exist. So there is a risk. There are downsides to demolishing them. Staff's recommendation is that the benefits outweigh the downsides. Ultimately, if somebody wants to put housing on there, if as little as 20% of the housing is affordable, it could qualify for a housing TIF district, regardless of whether the buildings are there or not.
And how does that differ from the building that's on Penn Avenue?
The house that's on Penn Avenue?
Yeah.
It really doesn't, except for maybe we haven't seen any evidence of anybody breaking into that or living in there. I don't think really anybody would have any idea that is a vacant structure. That's our goal anyway. But if that's a structure that you think we ought to be thinking about demolishing, we can certainly take a look into that as well. The other difference is on Penn, we think it's probably more likely that it would be a commercial development there that would be more likely to want to take advantage of a redevelopment TIF district. So,
Is this something the HRA wants on the agenda for the next meeting?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
in reading the memo that we received, it left some question as to legal opinion on the impact on TIF possibilities. Are you planning on getting an opinion that we can rely on if we were to make a decision?
yes, and I'd want to go back and look at the memo again. I think the question is more one of timing. With a redevelopment TIF district, there are rules about how long a property could have been vacant or how long the buildings could have been gone before it was established as a TIF district. I think that's the primary issue is one of timing. But we can certainly, we will certainly address that. This will come back to the HRA and the city council. The Gleason's mortuary property is owned by the HRA, so you're going to be the decision makers ultimately on whether that's demolished or not, and the city council would be the decision maker on the garage site. The memo is meant to be a heads up so that when we do come back to have these more in-depth conversations, it's not a surprise.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm fine with it coming to us whenever it's appropriate in staff's view, as long as we know that it'll come before us with all the facts that we need to make a decision at that time.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll make sure we don't get too far down a road before we come back to you.
Because we do have an environmental cleanup there.
Yep.
As well.
Okay. Anything else in terms of discussion items? If not, claims and payroll? We have
Moved?
Second.
any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And we have no further business, so we stand adjourned. Thank you.